Welcome to Oregon, where the trees are tall, the rain is non-stop, and the ghosts apparently got the memo to never leave. This is the state where fog rolls in like it pays rent, footsteps echo when nobody's there, and every old building has at least one tragic backstory and a chair that moves by itself. If vibes could whisper, Oregon would lean in and say, "You're not alone." People think Oregon is all hiking boots, coffee shops, and people named Sage who own 5 crystals. And yes, those things are true. But what they don't tell you is that half the state is haunted by miners who never clocked out, settlers who made very bad decisions, and spirits who are still mad about it. The energy here is less peaceful forest and more, why did it just get cold in July? Oregon doesn't do cute little ghost stories. Oh no. Oregon does full commitment. We're talking abandoned hospitals that feel like they're breathing, hotels where guests check in but spirits never checked out, and towns that look normal until you realize everyone avoids one specific building for reasons nobody wants to explain. That's when you know you're in the right place. And let me tell you, if a local says, "Oh yeah, that place is haunted," but they say it casually while sipping coffee, that's your red flag. Because in Oregon, haunted doesn't mean spooky fun. It means we don't go there anymore, don't stay after dark, or, my personal favorite, the building doesn't like new people. Excuse me? This is a state where ghost sightings are treated like weather reports. Yeah, it rained all day, saw a shadow figure near the stairs, typical Tuesday. You'll hear stories passed down like family recipes, except instead of secret ingredients, it's secret rooms, locked doors, and someone who swears they heard their name whispered at 3 a.m. when nobody else was home. So tonight, we're diving into the most haunted places in Oregon, the ones with the longest histories, the darkest legends, and the most absolutely not energy. Places where lights flicker for no reason, mirrors don't always reflect what's standing there, and the silence feels louder than noise. If walls could talk, these walls would scream. Some of these locations are famous, some are hidden, and some, locals would rather pretend don't exist at all. But every single one has a story, and once you hear it, you'll never look at Oregon the same way again. Especially not at night, especially not when the rain starts tapping on your window like it's trying to get in. So grab your flashlight, lock your doors, and maybe don't watch this alone. Because this is Oregon. Beautiful, eerie, and absolutely crawling with spirits who never moved on. Welcome to the most haunted places in Oregon, where even the ghosts wear flannel and mind their business until they don't. The story of the Shanghai tunnels begins back when Portland was less keep Portland weird and more keep Portland alive. In the mid-1800s, the city was a booming port town packed with sailors, loggers, gamblers, drunks, and men who trusted a free drink way too much. Beneath the wooden sidewalks and muddy streets, business owners quietly connected basements with narrow passageways. Officially, these tunnels moved goods. Unofficially, they moved people who didn't sign up to move anywhere. Enter the practice known as Shanghaiing, which sounds exotic until you realize it meant getting drugged, knocked out, or kidnapped and waking up on a ship halfway to Asia. Saloon owners and crimps would slip something nasty into a sailor's drink, drop him through a trap door, and drag him through the tunnels straight to the waterfront. By the time he came to, congratulations, you're now employed by the sea. Human resources was not involved. The tunnels became Portland's worst Uber, except the destination was forced labor and the tip was your freedom. These underground corridors weren't just sketchy, they were downright cruel. People were chained to walls, locked in cells, and sometimes kept so long they forgot what sunlight looked like. Some never made it onto ships at all, dying below ground from illness, injuries, or plain old neglect. And as history loves to remind us, when enough suffering gets soaked into one place, it doesn't always stay quiet. Portland cleaned up its image, paved over its secrets, and pretended the tunnels were just a rumor, which, of course, is exactly how you guarantee a haunting. Fast forward to modern times, and the tunnels are allegedly still very active, just not in the shipping humans overseas way. Tour guides talk about cold spots that feel like someone opened a freezer door behind you. Visitors report being touched, shoved, or grabbed, especially near old holding cells. People hear boots scraping on dirt floors even though nobody's walking. And cameras love this place. Random orbs, shadow figures, and blurry shapes that look suspiciously like someone who really doesn't want to be photographed. One of the most talked about spirits is believed to be a former captive who never left. People describe seeing a man in old sailor clothing wandering the tunnels, staring like he's still trying to figure out how he got there. Others hear muffled cries or knocking sounds, short, desperate taps that seem to come from behind sealed walls. It's the kind of noise that makes you laugh nervously and say, "It's probably the pipes," even though there are no pipes, and the knocking answers back. Then there are the children, because haunted places are never complete without children. Some visitors report hearing small footsteps running ahead of them or quiet, giggling echoing down the tunnels. Guides swear that toys have moved on their own, and more than one adult has turned around thinking a kid followed them, only to remember they don't own children and definitely didn't bring one underground into a nightmare basement. Employees and tour staff get it the worst. Objects slide across rooms, doors slam without warning, and lights flicker like they're auditioning for a horror movie. Some workers refuse to go down alone after closing, claiming they feel watched the entire time. Others say they've been pushed from behind or felt breath on their neck, which is especially rude considering the spirits aren't paying rent. So why are the Shanghai tunnels haunted? Because they're built on betrayal, fear, and lives that were stolen and discarded like yesterday's newspapers. These tunnels weren't just a shortcut. They were a trap, and whatever's still down there remembers that. And maybe that's the real reason people feel uneasy walking through them. You're not alone, and whoever is with you has been waiting a very long time for someone to notice. The story of the Oregon Vortex starts like a bad decision made in the woods, which honestly is how most haunted places begin. Back in the early 1900s, a German immigrant named John Litzter bought land just outside Gold Hill to build a gold assay office. The man was trying to test ore, not bend the laws of physics, but fate said, "Nah, let's ruin your depth perception instead." Tools rolled uphill, workers got sick, and everyone agreed something about this land felt off. Naturally, the scientific response was to panic and abandon it. For decades, locals avoided the area like it owed them money. Animals refused to cross it. Compasses spun like they were auditioning for a DJ gig, and people reported feeling dizzy, nauseous, or deeply uncomfortable, kind of like your first time realizing your house might be haunted, but you already signed the lease. Trees grew crooked, people swore they were shrinking and growing, and gravity just straight up freelanced. The land became known as the Mystery House area long before it was ever marketed, which tells you this weirdness was happening whether tourists showed up or not. By the 1940s, someone finally did what humans always do with the unexplainable: charged admission. The Oregon Vortex officially opened as a roadside attraction, leaning into the bizarre physics like, "Yes, gravity is broken here. Please proceed to the gift shop." Inside the tilted house of mystery, brooms stand upright, balls roll uphill, and people change height depending on where they stand. causing at least one lifelong insecurity per family visit. Science still argues whether it's magnetic fields, optical illusions, or the land just being petty. But here's where it gets haunted hilarious. Employees and visitors have long claimed the place isn't just weird, it's crowded with ghosts. The most famous spirit is said to be John Litster himself, who allegedly never got over losing his assay office and now spends eternity knocking things over like, "I paid for this land." Workers report tools being moved, doors slamming, and the overwhelming sense of being watched, which is unsettling until you remember you're also being watched by tourists eating funnel cake. Other ghost stories include shadow figures darting through the trees and disembodied footsteps circling the building after hours. Some employees swear they hear German-accented muttering when alone, either a ghost or someone from the parking lot really committed to the bit. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain, and lights flicker so often it feels less like a haunting and more like the building sighing in disappointment. One of the strangest recurring tales involves people feeling suddenly emotional, laughing, crying, or feeling irrationally angry for no reason. Couples argue, kids freak out. Grown adults refuse to step inside certain areas. Paranormal investigators claim the vortex amplifies energy, which sounds cool until you realize it means your bad mood gets a megaphone. Imagine haunting a place where the ghost's power is just making people extra uncomfortable. Honestly, relatable. Skeptics insist it's all optical illusions and terrain tricks, which might explain the physics, but not the ghostly footsteps, the moved objects, or why so many people feel like they're being judged by the woods themselves. Even skeptics admit the place feels wrong, like reality is slightly misaligned. Not evil, just smug, like it knows something you don't. Today, the Oregon Vortex stands as one of the weirdest roadside attractions in Oregon, a place where gravity clocks out early, ghosts allegedly unionized, and science politely shrugs. Whether it's haunted by spirits, strange energy, or just decades of confused tourists, one thing is certain. You will leave questioning reality, or at least questioning why you paid money to feel shorter than your cousin. Oregon State Hospital has a history that feels like it was designed to become haunted, whether the ghosts signed up for it or not. It opened in 1883 in Salem, back when mental health care was less therapy and compassion and more, lock the door and hope for the best. Patients were often sent there for things that today would get you a therapist, a coffee, and maybe a day off work, like depression, anxiety, or being too loud or too sad or a woman with opinions. Right from the jump, the place had heavy energy and a reputation that made locals side-eye it hard. The early days were rough. Treatments included ice baths, isolation, restraints, and other methods that now make modern doctors audibly gasp. Overcrowding was constant, understaffing was normal, and patient conditions ranged from misunderstood to genuinely severe. This wasn't a healing retreat. It was more like a Victorian-era stress dungeon. Many patients died there from illness, neglect, or just the sheer weight of the system, which, according to ghost lore, is basically a 5-star Yelp review for spirits looking to stick around. Things got even darker in the mid-1900s with the rise of lobotomies. Yes, those lobotomies. The hospital became one of the places where the procedure was performed, sometimes far too casually. And if that wasn't unsettling enough, the hospital gained international notoriety when it housed Rosemary Kennedy, whose botched lobotomy left her severely disabled for life. So between the trauma, the fear, and the regret baked into those walls, it's no wonder people swear the building never really learned how to relax. Fast forward a bit, and the hospital's reputation took another hit thanks to pop culture. Parts of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest were filmed there, which did nothing to convince people the place was chill. Jack Nicholson, pacing those halls, basically told the universe, "Yeah, this place is unhinged." Even though the hospital has since been rebuilt and modernized, many locals swear the land itself still remembers everything that happened, like emotional trauma with excellent long-term storage. Now let's talk ghosts, because oh yes, there are ghosts. Staff and visitors have reported hearing footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening and closing on their own, and voices calling out when no one's there. Some claim to see shadowy figures standing in doorways, just watching, politely but judgmentally. Others report sudden cold spots, even when the heating system is working overtime like it's trying to prove a point. One of the most common stories involves former patients who allegedly still wander the halls, confused and restless. People say they feel sudden waves of sadness, panic, or dread for no clear reason, like emotional drive-bys from the past. There are also tales of nurses being tapped on the shoulder by absolutely no one, and equipment turning on by itself, which is either paranormal activity or ghosts trying to get a shift covered. Security guards seem to get the worst of it. Late-night patrols are often accompanied by unexplained noises, movement caught on cameras, and the deeply unsettling feeling of being followed. Some guards refuse to walk certain areas alone. When the people paid to be there say, "Nah, I'm good," that's usually a sign something spooky is clocking in over time. Today, the Oregon State Hospital is a modern medical facility focused on humane care, but its past still lingers like an awkward family secret no one wants to bring up at Thanksgiving. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the stories, history, and sheer emotional weight of the place make it one of the most haunted-feeling hospitals in the Pacific Northwest. And if spirits really do hang around places of unfinished business, well, this place probably needs a bigger waiting room. Perched high in the West Hills like it's judging everyone's life choices below, Pittock Mansion has been looming over Portland since 1914. The mansion was built by Henry Pittock, the powerhouse publisher behind The Oregonian, who basically said, "If I'm going to be rich, I'm going to be dramatically rich." He chose a hilltop with a sweeping view of the city, Mount Hood, and, let's be honest, everyone who ever wronged him. The house was meant to scream success, permanence, and yes, I did invent central vacuum systems before you. Henry and his wife, Georgiana, moved in late in life, enjoyed their luxury for a few years, and then promptly died because apparently even epic mansions can't outsmart time. After their deaths, the house bounced around owners, survived neglect, and narrowly escaped demolition. Portland eventually stepped in like, "Absolutely not. We are not tearing down a haunted French Renaissance flex." Today, the mansion is preserved, polished, and open to the public, but the Pittocks may have missed the memo about moving on. Now, let's talk ghosts, because this house did not collect all that personality just to sit quietly. Visitors and staff have long reported seeing the apparitions of Henry and Georgiana themselves, still roaming the halls like proud homeowners who refuse to sell. Henry is usually spotted near the staircase or library, apparently keeping tabs on things, while Georgiana favors the music room because even in the afterlife, she's still cultured and refuses to haunt anywhere tacky. One of the most famous ghostly moments involves a mirror. Guests have claimed they've seen the reflection of an elderly couple standing behind them, only to turn around and find absolutely no one there. Which is rude, honestly. If you're going to haunt someone, at least commit and say hello. The mirror sightings have become so common that the house is basically saying, yes, yes, the ghosts photobomb again, moving on. Employees have also reported phantom footsteps echoing through empty rooms, lights turning on and off, and doors opening on their own, not violently, not aggressively, just enough to say, "We're still here, and we are very disappointed in how you closed that door." It's the passive-aggressive haunting of a couple who once hosted high society and now must tolerate tourists in sneakers. Then there's the temperature thing, cold spots popping up randomly, especially in rooms tied closely to the Piddocks' personal lives. You'll be walking along, feeling fine, and suddenly it's like the house whispered, "No heart." Some say these chills are strongest near Henry's favorite areas, as if he's still pacing around thinking about circulation numbers and newspaper deadlines. What really seals Piddock Mansion's spooky reputation is how calm the hauntings are. No screaming ghosts, no flying furniture, just the persistent feeling of being watched by extremely wealthy spirits who worked very hard for their success and absolutely did not die for you to touch the banister. It's less poltergeist and more ghost HOA. So if you visit Piddock Mansion and feel a presence behind you, hear footsteps, or catch something strange in the mirror, don't panic. You're not in danger. You're just a guest in someone else's forever home. Smile politely, respect the furniture, and remember, Henry Piddock is still watching, and he definitely knows you're impressed. Lithia Park is the kind of place that politely lures you in with flowers and then refuses to let you leave because you've become emotionally attached to a duck. Tucked into the southern end of Ashland, this park is 93 acres of carefully landscaped calm that whispers, "Relax," while joggers aggressively pass you with Bluetooth earbuds and spiritual superiority. It's old-school charming, like a Victorian novel, but with better restrooms and fewer fainting couches. The park's story starts in the early 1900s, when Ashland realized it needed something fancy to distract people from the fact that frontier life was hard and dusty. Enter the mineral-rich spring, yes, Lithia water, which locals once believed had health benefits. Spoiler alert, it mostly tasted like regret. People flocked to drink it anyway because in the early 1900s, if water had minerals in it, it was basically medicine. The park grew around that spring, evolving into a lush escape with bridges, lawns, and trees that look like they're auditioning for a romance novel cover. Walking through Lithia Park feels like strolling through a live-action screensaver. There are winding paths, duck ponds, manicured gardens, and enough shade to make you forget the sun exists. The trees are massive and dramatic. Some of them have probably seen things and are choosing not to talk about it. Every bench seems strategically placed for deep thoughts like, "I should move here," or "Did I lock my car?" It's serene in that very Pacific Northwest way, where nature looks calm but could absolutely overthrow you if it wanted. Then there's Bear Creek, casually flowing through the park like it pays rent. This creek provides the soothing background noise that makes you feel productive for simply existing outdoors. Sit near it long enough and you'll start planning a new life that includes journaling, artisanal bread, and a strong opinion about herbal tea. The ducks here are bold, confident, some might say entitled. They will look you dead in the eye like, "You got snacks, or are we wasting each other's time?" Lithia Park also has a long-standing relationship with theater folks, thanks to the nearby Oregon Shakespeare Festival. During festival season, the park fills with actors rehearsing lines, tourists pretending they totally understood King Lear, and people dressed in black who look emotionally intense for no clear reason. You might overhear dramatic monologues near the Rose Garden, which really adds spice to an otherwise peaceful stroll. Of course, no historic park would be complete without whispers of hauntings, and Lithia Park delivers, subtly. Some visitors swear they've felt watched near the older sections of the park or heard footsteps when no one was around. Are they ghosts? Maybe. Or maybe it's just the overwhelming sense that nature is judging your life choices. Late at night, the fog rolls in, the lamps glow softly, and the park looks like the opening scene of a very polite horror movie where the ghost apologizes before scaring you. The park has survived floods, redesigns, and generations of humans trying to improve nature by adding signs and pathways. Despite all that, it still manages to feel timeless, like it's gently amused by our presence. Every season brings a new personality. Spring is flirty, summer is smug, fall is dramatic, and winter is quiet in a don't talk to me before coffee kind of way. No matter when you visit, Lithia Park acts like it's been expecting you. In the end, Lithia Park isn't just a park, it's a vibe. It's where first dates happen, tourists get lost on purpose, locals pretend they don't come here every day, and ducks reign supreme. It's beautiful, slightly mysterious, occasionally theatrical, and just funny enough to remind you not to take life too seriously. You'll come for a walk, stay for the atmosphere, and leave wondering why you don't own a scarf and a poetry notebook yet. Malheur Butte rises out of eastern Oregon like the earth cleared its throat and said, "One more thing." It's a lonely volcanic plug sitting near Ontario, watching traffic go by with the judgmental calm of something that's been here way longer than humans and plans to be here long after. Geologists will tell you it's the hardened core of an ancient volcano, left standing after everything around it eroded away. In plain English, the mountain stayed when the rest of the land clocked out early. That already gives it major, last one standing in a horror movie energy. Long before highways and cattle fences, this land belonged to indigenous peoples who knew better than to underestimate a weird hill in the middle of nowhere. The Malheur area was used for travel, hunting, and seasonal life, and landmarks like the Butte weren't just scenery. They were navigation, story, and warning all rolled into one. When settlers showed up in the 1800s, they treated the Butte like a convenient landmark. Turn left at the creepy rock and keep going until your wagon breaks. It became a silent witness to ranching, hardship, and the kind of loneliness that only wide-open country can serve up. Here's where the vibes shift. Malheur Butte has always had a reputation for being off. Locals will tell you sound behaves weird out there. Voices carry when they shouldn't. Wind whistles in ways that feel intentional, like it's trying to spell your name. People hiking or driving nearby report that heavy watched feeling. The kind where you suddenly remember every bad decision you've ever made and apologize out loud to no one. That's not geology. That's atmosphere. One of the most repeated ghost stories involves shadow figures seen moving along the slopes at dusk. Not animals, not people, just tall, slow shapes that vanish when you focus on them. Ranchers have claimed to see lights near the Butte late at night, floating, bobbing, doing absolutely nothing useful like normal lights do. No campfires, no vehicles, just spooky little glow orbs minding their business and ruining yours. Then there are the sounds. Footsteps on rock when no one's there. A single cough. A voice calling out, carried perfectly across open land, only for you to realize you are very much alone and now emotionally unwell. Some say these are echoes of travelers who died crossing harsh terrain, while others think the Butte itself just likes messing with people. If that rock could talk, it would absolutely whisper your name and then pretend it didn't. Of course, skeptics say it's wind, erosion, and the human brain doing gymnastics in isolation. And sure, maybe. But explain why people feel sudden dread for no reason. Explain why animals refuse to go near certain sides of the Butte. Explain why locals will casually say, "Yeah, don't hang out there at night," and then change the subject like they didn't just drop a paranormal mic. The truth is, Malheur Butte doesn't need a haunted house or a tragic headline to feel unsettling. It's ancient, it's alone, and it's seen generations come and go. That kind of age carries weight. It's the same reason old cemeteries feel heavy even when nothing happens. Time leaves fingerprints, and Malheur Butte is covered in them. So if you ever find yourself driving through eastern Oregon and spot that solitary rock rising from the plain, give it a nod. Maybe don't stare too long. And if you hear your name carried on the wind, know you didn't. Keep driving. Malheur Butte has been here for thousands of years, and it doesn't need your attention, but it absolutely notices when it has it. If Forest Park had a personality test, the Witch's Castle would score high in mysterious, tucked along Balch Creek in the Maclay Park area of Forest Park. The so-called castle isn't a towering fortress so much as a mossy stone ruin that looks like it woke up one morning and chose vibes. You hike in through towering trees and damp air that smells like rain and ambition, and suddenly, boom, there it is, sitting quietly like it knows exactly why you came. Here's the least magical reveal first. The Witch's Castle is actually the stone house, built in the 1930s as a public restroom and storage building for park visitors. Yes, a haunted landmark born from plumbing. It even had an early water system using Balch Creek to flush toilets, which might explain why the place has always given off strong, you should have gone before the hike energy. Over time, vandalism and neglect chipped away at it, but the final blow came when a massive windstorm knocked trees into the structure and wrecked it beyond repair. Instead of fixing it, the city walked away and left the stone shell behind, because nothing fuels legends like abandonment. Nature moved in fast. Moss claimed the walls, vines draped themselves dramatically, and graffiti artists arrived like, "Ah, yes, my canvas." What remained looked less like a bathroom and more like the lair of someone who definitely owns candles made of questionable wax. The name Witch's Castle didn't come from any official record, just human imagination doing what it does best. People saw a crumbling stone structure in deep woods and collectively said, "Yep, witch." No proof required. Add the way fog drifts through the trees, and how the creek murmurs like it's whispering secrets, and suddenly everyone's convinced someone named Elowin used to live there and curse hikers who litter. Things get darker when you learn about the creek itself. Balch Creek is named after Danford Balch, an early settler whose real-life story reads like a grim, cautionary tale. In the 1800s, Balch shot and killed his son-in-law after his daughter eloped without permission. He was later executed by hanging, becoming the first person legally put to death by the state of Oregon. The land remembers things like that, or at least people really want it to. That's where the ghost stories kick in. Visitors talk about the area feeling heavy, like the forest is holding its breath. People report footsteps behind them when no one's there, shadows moving where shadows shouldn't, and sudden cold spots inside the stone ruins, even in summer. Some swear they've heard whispers, laughter, or arguing echoing through the trees, which is either paranormal activity or the woods replaying historical trauma like a very quiet podcast. The most common experience goes something like this. You step into the stone house, your voice sounds wrong when it echoes, and the temperature shifts just enough to make your skin prickle. You feel watched. Not aggressively, just observed. Like something's thinking, you can look but don't get comfortable. You leave joking about it, but your pace picks up on the trail back, and you absolutely do not look behind you more than twice. That's the magic of the Witch's Castle. It's not jump scare scary, it's slow, atmospheric, and deeply Portland. A place where history, imagination, and damp moss all shook hands and agreed to make you slightly uneasy. Visit in daylight, and it's charming. Visit at dusk, and it's spooky. Visit at night, and congratulations, you've unlocked the bad decisions achievement. Either way, you'll leave with muddy shoes, cool photos, and the unmistakable feeling that the forest was listening the whole time. The Geyser Grand Hotel didn't just pop up in Baker City, it arrived with confidence. Built in 1889 during Eastern Oregon's Gold Rush glow-up, the hotel was meant to announce that Baker City was not some dusty pit stop. This was a place with money, ambition, and people who absolutely expected velvet, chandeliers, and staff who didn't ask too many questions. If buildings could talk, the Geyser would open with, "Yes, I am better than the rest of the block." Back in its prime, the Geyser Grand was the social hub, the kind of place where deals were made, reputations were built, and somebody was always dramatically leaning against a bar. Wealthy miners, railroad folks, and travelers passing through treated it like the fanciest group chat in town. The architecture leaned hard into Victorian elegance, tall ceilings, ornate details, and enough craftsmanship to make modern hotels feel personally attacked. Then, like all dramatic legends, the Geyser hit its rough patch. Time marched on, fortunes shifted, and the hotel eventually closed and fell quiet. For years it sat there like a retired diva, still beautiful, still dramatic, but waiting for someone to remember how iconic it used to be. When restoration finally came in the 1990s, the place didn't just reopen. It returned. Polished wood, glowing chandeliers, and that stained glass ceiling that makes everyone instinctively whisper. Now let's talk about the part everyone really came for. The ghosts. Because no historic hotel gets this fancy without collecting a few permanent residents who missed checkout. Over the years, guests and staff have reported footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening and closing like they've got opinions, and that unmistakable feeling of being watched, politely but intensely. The spirits here don't seem aggressive, though. They're more old money haunting than full horror movie. Think subtle mischief, lights flicking on, sounds that make you pause mid-sentence. A hallway that suddenly feels longer than it should. It's the kind of haunting that says, "I was rich in 1892 and I'm still supervising things." Some stories suggest the ghosts are former guests or longtime residents who got a little too attached to the lifestyle. Honestly, can you blame them? If you spent your afterlife anywhere, wouldn't you pick a place with chandeliers, polished floors, and people still dressing up to come downstairs? Even the ghosts here seem like they'd judge you quietly for wearing sweatpants in public spaces. Late at night is when the Geyser really shows off its personality. The lobby lighting gets low, the stained glass glows just enough to feel dramatic, and the silence has weight to it. That's when people start questioning every sound, every reflection, every "did you hear that" moment. It's not screaming in terror scary, it's thinking about it later scary. So, staying at the Geyser Grand means you're getting history, elegance, and maybe a ghost who just wants to make sure you appreciate the decor. It's part luxury hotel, part living museum, part polite paranormal roommate situation. And honestly, if those walls could talk or whisper, they'd probably say the same thing. Baker City remembers, and the Geyser never really forgot. All right, y'all. That's gonna wrap up our tour through the most haunted places in Oregon, where the scenery is beautiful, the vibes are creepy, and the ghosts clearly never moved out. Thanks so much for hanging out with me and surviving this journey without throwing sage at your screen or checking behind you one more time. If you're suddenly hearing footsteps, whispers, or your house starts feeling a little too quiet, don't worry. That's just Oregon energy following you home. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with a friend who swears they don't believe in ghosts but won't walk through their house in the dark. Drop a comment telling me which place creeped you out the most, and let me know where you want us to explore next. Until then, sleep with the lights on, mind your business after midnight, and remember, if something calls your name and you're home alone, no, it didn't.